Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne broadcasting live from Biddy and Beau Coffee, downtown Auburn, next to Auburn Bank. We'll be here for the next 2 hours. Got a great show lined up. It is opening weekend college football season, 24 hours away. If you're a Florida Gator fan, you probably wish you could take the clock back 24 hours. We've got Dave Schultz, the Sultan of the Sunbelt down in Lafayette, Louisiana. Covers University of Louisiana, Sunbelt, SEC, college football, sports all over the country. We got that news that we've been hearing a lot of chatter on about Stanford, Cal, and SMU coming into the ACC. Well, looks like it's going to happen. I don't know what they're going to call the ACC now. This is nuts, but this is what we're dealing with right now. It will pass. It will pass, and it'll pass soon. We'll be joined in the second segment. Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, is going to drop in here with us for a visit. Hour number 2. Beau Carter from the National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers Association of America out in Dallas will check in with us. And Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline in Oxford, will talk with us as well. Ken Capps possibly was celebrating his birthday yesterday, so hopefully he can check in, but we'll see. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. We're here 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, 300 shows a year. We talk college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. That's what we do. That's what we're here for. I'll have information coming up about the Ronald McDonald House in Memphis, the Clays for Kids Sporting Clay Shoot. Chip Greer, my good friend, is the treasurer, and I'm looking for some information on that, and we want to get that thing sold out. Also, the first annual St. Paul Open. Whether you're Catholic or not, you went to St. Paul, Bishop Byrne, you went to OLPH, it doesn't matter. OLS, great event. The Archbishop J. Peter Sarton Scholarship Fund. Call Michael Jordan, 901-647-3014. All the teams are sold out, but they do have opportunities to sponsor holes and flags. There'll be a dinner the night before. It is October 2nd, Chickasaw Country Club in Memphis. And we'll bring David Schultz on here right now. And David, just another day of 2023, September 1st, and Stanford and Cal. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Let's just. Why don't we bring the University of Mars in as well while we're at it? But the Sultan of the Sunbelt, Dave, I got to tell you, you've become one of our most requested guests by fan bases, Sunbelt, SEC, and everything. Because they said no matter what Schultz he's talking about, he's passionate. And he knows what the hell he's talking about. And I had a great conversation Wednesday night, late at night, with John Hartwell and his wife. And big fans of yours, what you do. And in my honest opinion, they need to have a Sunbelt TV network, and you need to be the lead anchor. That's just my opinion.
Well, they do have one. And first, let me congratulate you. It's taken most of
yeah. Well,
Annette. So congratulations to you. It's a good hair day for Rob Browne. That doesn't happen very often. It's kind of like a leap year, once every 4 years or so. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that Syracuse Cal, matchup in anything.
Yeah.
Just they're doing what they have to do. They're going to get money. SMU's not going to take it.
Yeah. Well, the SMU, you look at what is going on with this massive expansion across the country. I don't know how many years, and Schultz will be right back with us. I don't know how many years it's going to be before SMU, Cal, and Stanford start getting revenue share from the ACC. But Schultz,
am I back?
SMU's got a lot of money. We know SMU's got a lot of money.
We're here.
Yeah.
On Sidelines, waiting for Rob to come in. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back. All right. So enough about that. The off the field stuff. We can't do anything about. Yeah. I just saw the news that it's official. Are they? Is this all starting next year?
I don't know, but I would think it is. There's no other reason for them to stay in the Pac. Now you've got.
Well, that's right. There is no Pac-12 anymore. You're right. They're all leaving. So yeah,
Pac-2.
All right.
So what are you going to
figure out those football schedules?
What are you going to do with Oregon State and Washington State?
Yeah. That's really sad.
Yeah,
It really is sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not great. Not great.
And
but let's talk about what happened on the field. That's much more fun.
Let's head to Salt Lake City. Last night, Gators and Utah. That altitude, it wasn't the altitude.
No, come on.
I know, I'm being
with the
facetious.
altitude. It had nothing to do with anything in that football game. Come on.
I'm saying. I said it wasn't the altitude.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't.
All right.
Yeah, but when you got 2 number 3s on the field on a kick return team at the same time, that is a breakdown.
That's not even a player mental breakdown, right? That's a coaching mental breakdown, right? Because they know they have 2 number 3s. You know you can't have it. And I got a story for you, Rob. That happened to the Cajuns against Coastal Carolina a couple of years ago, and it helped. Well, it would have helped the Cajuns, but they couldn't take advantage of it, right? A chance to tie the ball game up, and they couldn't take advantage of it. So it's happened before. So if you don't watch the game, and this is why, now we have it with ESPN Plus, so you can watch every Sunbelt game, that I always attended the games, because if I missed something, I may not be able to talk about it. If you read or get the recap or see the highlights, you may not know that this game absolutely turned on 2 penalties, right? It turned on Florida. It was 7-3. Things had calmed down a little bit, and Florida's going to go in for the go-ahead touchdown. They're going to go for it on 4th and 1, or at least try to draw Utah offside. So what happens? They jump early. Then they miss a chip shot field goal. So instead of 10-7 or 7-6, it's still 7-3. Then the Florida defense stops them at the midfield, and they're going to punt it away. Instead, they get 2 number 3s on the field at the same time, and it's a touchdown, and that's the end of the ball game. So instead of 10-7, it's 14-3. So again, I don't know what would have happened the rest of the way. All right, I can say that Florida did stop Utah on the ensuing drive defensively. So who knows what would have happened? But I mean, Florida, I just didn't think. And I'm a Billy Napier fan. I just didn't think Florida could be nearly as bad as they are. They're bad. All right. I took the over 5.5. They ain't getting there. And I saw, our buddy Conor O'Gara say he's not going anywhere. He's not going to be on the hot seat this year. I got 31 million reasons, to tell you why he's not going anywhere. But boy, if he's on 4 wins, that seat's going to get awfully warm. I mean, it's going to be awfully warm, and he's going to be embarrassed by some teams, right? Utah had 8 starters out and the backup quarterback, and they're playing the 3rd string quarterback. I mean, Florida has some serious issues moving forward. They just were not ready to go, and it's going to be a long season in Gainesville. It really is. And if somehow Florida State takes down LSU, they're going to really, and Miami is any good, although I'm holding out. I'm waiting to reserve there on that one. I think Florida State's going to be pretty good. I mean, it's going to come crashing down hard in Gainesville all season. It's going to be a long season for Billy Napier and Florida Gators. They just did not look. They looked like they needed an extra month of training camp. They were just not ready to play or nearly as talented as Utah. Yeah. Well, first of all, Kyle Whittingham in his 18th year, he took over when Urban Meyer left after the 04 season. Yeah, he's been there that whole time.
He needs to get the credit that he deserves. He's a hell of a coach. And I look at the takeaways from last night's game with Florida. First off, what are your positives that you can take away with their offense? Any? Well, if you look at the stats, right, Graham Mertz's numbers weren't bad. Good. Yeah. But a lot of that may have been, it's 24-3, so we're backing off a little bit, right? We're not going to let anything over our heads. Other than that, I don't know what you can take away. I mean, the defense played okay, right? For an offense that was doing nothing. I mean, nothing, right? The defense played all right. So you can take that away. Other than that, I'm not sure. It is amazing to me that a team like Florida can lack that kind of talent. Napier had more NFL talent when he walked into Lafayette and took over the Raging Cajuns. Yeah. Raymond Calais Jr., Trey Regis got to the NFL. Michael Jacquette got to the NFL. Robert Hunt's in the NFL. Kevin Dotson's in the NFL. Yeah. So he walked into a bunch of talent. And I don't know how much NFL talent is on the Florida Gators right now, and that is scary to say. Well, you go back and look. You mentioned about Florida State. If they beat LSU, you remember when Florida got put on probation, 84, 85, when the NCAA hammered them from 87 to 2000. Florida State got guys like Sammy Smith out of Apopka and so many studs that Florida typically would have gotten, or they would have split them. And they went on that 14-year run
Right.
87
Well,
to
they
2000.
got,
Never finished lower than fourth. They don't need to let Florida State get on top.
They got a guy named Dion showed up a little bit.
Yeah,
Peter Woods showed up a little bit. They went on this quarterback run a little bit. I mean, Florida State got a lot of guys. Florida State got a ton of guys. And, Florida got their guys, right? Shane Matthews, we all learned that Florida, and now maybe we know why, they don't take out-of-conference or, out-of-state non-conference ball games since 1991. Did you see that, Rob? The last time Florida did that was 1991 against my Syracuse Orange, and they lost that ball game. That's why they don't do it anymore. And now they're not going to do it for another 35 years because they lost that one as well.
Yeah. Interesting stat here. LSU's got pretty good football tradition. You got to admit they're one of the winningest, 11th or 12th winningest of all time. You know how many top 10 actual road wins LSU has in their history against teams outside of the SEC?
I do not.
1. And that was the Texas game in 2019. And that was a shootout. Very few teams will play non-conference games against quality opponents.
Yeah,
but I remember,
that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, but they should.
Say that probably for a lot of teams, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But they should. Time Alabama played, above the Mason-Dixon line. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, you go back and you look, though, with Penn State. They had that 10-year deal in the 80s with Alabama, home and home. That was a great series, but you rarely see it anymore.
Right.
It would be much better if teams would play quality competition. But, we talked about the Gators, the post-mortem, not really good. I mean, you make your most improvement from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah, there's a lot to improve. So hashtag always a bright side, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's go back.
And then the problem, Rob, is right. And I know it's a different, level of football, but then the quarterback that should have been on Florida, Jaden Rashada, is lighting up. I know it was Southern Utah, so it's not exactly the same thing, but at least he looked like a competent quarterback to begin with, right? I mean, in the first little bit, Mertz couldn't handle any kind of pressure that was coming his way. And so if, he's got a clean pocket, he's all right. But any little pressure, anything that goes off schedule, he cannot, make the adjustments. Jaden Rashada looked like, and he's a freshman. Mertz has been around. So that's going to be one of those, what if situations for, Napier and Florida for, if we got him, maybe we would be in a different situation, or at the very least, it'd be like, we can build around this guy. No one's going to build anything around Graham Mertz.
Yeah. He had several years of starting at Wisconsin. The one question I had about him was, is he going to be able to deal with the speed of the SEC front sevens? Well, that wasn't even an SEC team. That was Utah. Right. Now, Utah has won the Pac-12 the previous 2 years. They got a damn good program.
Yeah, they're not. They're not good.
SEC. Yeah,
but it's not SEC speed. You're right.
So, look, the Gators got a long way to go. I know we talked with Buddy and friends and Ben Troop and a lot of Gators, but they're not happy, I'm sure. All right, let's switch gears real quick. I want to talk about LSU, Florida State. Jason Caldwell is going to be with us here in a minute from Auburn Undercover, talking about Auburn. And really, it's not so much about Auburn playing UMass tomorrow. It's Auburn getting better. But LSU, a couple of things.
What are you doing with those? Yeah, by the way, quickly, it was 39.5 points. UMass puts up 28 points in the fourth quarter. They get their first FBS road win in forever. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the line is 35. Also, I think the UMass coach is buddies with Hugh Freeze, so there's not going to be any reason to run up that score. You can take UMass? You can take the 35 points?
Come on, Rob.
Do it.
Yeah, do it. I mean, look, I'm thinking I will, because I look at Auburn, and I think what you want to see with Auburn is, can they blow people off the line of scrimmage? And can they do the things they hadn't been doing the last few years? If anything, with 41 new players on that roster, and I know Jason has forgotten more than I know about Auburn 100 times, but the key with Auburn is in the last 4 years, Georgia, Alabama, LSU have recruited 18, 19, 20 offensive linemen, Auburn 9. Right. Now, they brought in 7 via the portal. Schultz, got to ask you about LSU, though, against Florida State.
Right.
Jordan Travis, been there a long time. Jaden Daniels has gained about 12 pounds. We saw him at media days. He's a good-looking quarterback. I think the best guy, dual threat, is KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, but that's also his downfall because he's so big. He's like, I'm bigger than all these linebackers, and he runs too much.
I know Jaden Daniels ran last year, but that was because LSU couldn't run the football.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jaden Daniels is dual threat. We'll see how many times they run the football for, Jaden Daniels compared to, a running play for KJ
Yeah.
Jefferson. I think Jaden Daniels basically runs when he has to, or at least this year. I think last year they did scheme some things for him. But I personally think that KJ is much more of a dual threat quarterback than Jaden Daniels. Jaden can run, but I'd like to see him be more in the pocket, move around in the pocket, scramble when necessary. But it's going to be a great football game. I think it's going to be a great football game. Someone told me it was going to be a blowout. I don't really see that happening. This is one of those games, Rob, that I tend to not bet on. A, because I've lost money the last 2 season openers on LSU. They get embarrassed by UCLA, and then they get embarrassed for the first 50 minutes against Florida State in the Dome, nonetheless, in New Orleans. Yeah. No chance I'm betting on this one because it's a turnover game. If something happens, it's a turnover game. So it's too close to call. I think LSU is going to win it. Everyone thinks that it doesn't hurt FSU as much because now – LSU can't lose another ball game, whether it's in the, regular season or SEC championship game to get to the playoff. I'm not sure if I buy that, but, they think Florida State can run the table in the ACC and still get to the playoff. We'll see. It's going to be a great game, and they get the night to themselves, right? That's Sunday night. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, interesting. You talk about a team with 2 losses. Auburn in 2017 lost early when Jarrett Stidham was sacked 11 times at Clemson, 14-6, but they came back, had that big lead on LSU, lost that. But in the end of the season, they beat number one Georgia and number 1 Alabama in a 3-week span. And so when they went to the SEC championship, they were number 2 in the CFP rankings. Then they got beat. So LSU, with the schedule they play, if they lose to Florida State, could still, I think, lose another SEC game. But if they win the right ones and they get the conference championship, they would be in the playoffs.
Sure. Right. It's going to be tough to lose an SEC game and still get to the championship, although they did it last year, right? So you're right. You're right. That's why I don't think there's nearly as much on the line between the two teams, because they may be able to lose a game. And of course, next year, if something like this happens, there really is no pressure, right? The top 12 teams are going to go. Yeah. So maybe we will actually get more of these good early season matchups where a loss does not matter.
Yeah.
And a good opponent will be taken more into account.
Well, David, again, looking at it from your chair, in the coming years with a 12-team playoff, in November, the top 25 teams theoretically can all be saying, hey, there's a really good chance that we're going to make the college football playoff. That's going to create a lot of interest nationally for football versus it's the same 4 or the same. We've had 14 schools in the first 9 years out of 133 Division I schools make the playoffs. That's, right at 10%.
Right. It's the same teams every year, right? You got a lot of people. I think a lot of people are picking Florida State to get there. I've even seen some Oregon in there and some Texas in there this year, teams that have, not regularly been there. Was Oregon there 1 year maybe? So the first it'll be interesting to see on how this year goes. And all of a sudden it's come full circle, Rob, right? People were picking against Alabama. So all of a sudden too many people were picking against Alabama. Now, well, we believe in Nick Saban. We don't know who the quarterback is. Nick Saban doesn't know who the quarterback is. Nick Saban doesn't want to tell us who the quarterback is because he doesn't want to deal with teenagers pouting or something like that.
Yeah.
Just tell us the quarterback. Come on, step up, you know. And then he's telling us they don't know. He doesn't know if he's got enough talent. What, isn't his class been 1, 2, and 1? What's he doing?
Well, he's got 8 linebackers in his linebacker room at Alabama that were 5 stars coming out of high school.
But he doesn't have enough talent? Is that what he said? Yeah. He doesn't know if he's got enough talent on this team? What's he talking about?
Here's what I think is the underlying reason why coaches are so hesitant to name a starting quarterback if it's a close battle. They want to make sure classes start and those kids can't transfer out to another school in time to start classes. I think that's what's going on behind. We all know it's going to be Jalen Milroe.
I agree.
Does that mean anything? We'll
see how long it lasts.
We'll see how long it lasts because, Ty Simpson came out of Martin, Tennessee. His dad in his 18th year is a coach at UT Martin. Hell of a prospect. And then, you got Tyler Buckner. He comes in there.
Well,
you would think he had the advantage.
What, Rob? That's the last guy I've heard. It's not Tyler Buckner. It's Dylan Lonergan. It's the freshman. Yeah. So all of a sudden you hear these, with rumors or whatever, these reports, whatever they may be. All of a sudden the freshman's getting more love than the 2 other guys that have been there, right? Milroe's been there forever. Simpson's going into his 3rd year or at least his 2nd year. I mean, come on. And that's why I happen to think that Alabama's going to lose at least 2 ball games this year because these guys are probably pretty good, right? They're pretty good, except what are the quarterbacks been for the last 4 quarterbacks? They've all been better than the last one, right?
Yeah.
Tua was better than Jalen. Mac had a better year than Tua. Bryce had a better year than Mac, right? And think about the wide receivers they're throwing to. They're all in the NFL, although one's in jail. They're all in the pros, right? Najee Harris had the quietest 30-touchdown season in the history of college football, and DeVonta Smith wins the Heisman that year. Correct. And so I just don't think the guys that they have right now are as good. They're still really good. They're as good as the guys that they're replacing. All right. We got a freshman. Again, we saw this last year. LSU had freshman tackles. Texas had freshman tackles, so they played pretty well. We got a freshman tackle at left tackle for Alabama. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. You can name on one hand the number of true freshmen that start at left tackle in the school's history. And that's very rare. I mean, J.C. Latham is their leader, big guy. I think with Alabama.
He's on the right side.
Yeah. And exactly.
Proctor? I think it's Caden Proctor is the big left tackle.
And that's the kid out of Iowa. Yeah. And he was, committed to Iowa, one of the top players in the country. And then right before signing day, switches to Alabama. But this is what I'm going to ask you, too, about the quarterback situation. Tyler Buckner was not going to beat Sam Hartman, who transferred from Wake Forest to Notre Dame. So Tommy Rees comes in a few months early. I think Tyler thought, okay, I got my guy there. I'll have an instant. It doesn't work that way. And I think what Tyler Buckner is going to experience, because London's from Buford, Georgia, Metro Atlanta, where it seems like half the players in America come from. I look at the quarterback thing. Jalen Milroe, probably 6'3". He's big. He's fast. Again, I have a lot more confidence in Joe Milton at Tennessee than I do Jalen Milroe. Not that Jalen's not good.
We've seen more of Milton.
Exactly. So that's why.
Last year after Hooker got hurt.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? For Buckner, right? This is not the Tommy. I don't think so. You can correct me if I'm wrong. This is not the Tommy Rees offense, which, if you're an Alabama fan, thank goodness, because I didn't like that offense last year, or he didn't call it properly, at least in the game that I saw. This is still the Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian offense, right? I mean, when Saban was asked a couple of years ago, when Bill O'Brien came in, he's like, why would we teach, 40 new guys the offense when we can just teach one guy the offense and he can figure it out, right? So Mac Jones was getting ready for the draft, and he's teaching Bill O'Brien the offense. I presume that's what they're doing with Tommy Rees. This is still the offense that they've been running for a decade, although because this is what you're hearing, right? Although they want to play more power football. They want to do kind of what Georgia and Michigan are doing. They want to ram it down your throat. You know why? Because the quarterback and the receivers aren't as good as they were, just a couple of years ago. So they're not changing the offense because, a trend in college football. They're changing an offense because they're not quite as good as what they had been doing. That's why they're changing the offense. I've been saying this for a year, Rob. They're going to lose at home to Texas. When was the last time that happened? Do we have to look that up? The last time that Alabama lost at home to an out-of-conference foe? It's not ULM, is it? We got to go back to 2007?
Yeah, it's been 2007. That's right. And before that, it was a month of Sundays as well. I mean, they lost in 86 at Bryant-Denny to Penn State badly.
Well, I presume under the David Shula era that there were a couple of out-of-conference non-losses. So,
There were some bad ones, but let's switch gears. Tennessee in Nashville, Nissan Stadium against Virginia. I mean, Joe Milton last year at the Vanderbilt game, they didn't have to do much, 56-0. Then they get that win 31-14 over Clemson. Everybody worries about, he's got a cannon for an arm. It's the short and intermediate passes. That's like Nick Marshall at Auburn, had one of the best arms I've ever seen. Athletically, he's the best quarterback, in my opinion, ever to wear an Auburn uniform was Nick Marshall. Best pure quarterback, maybe not, but best athlete. And the fastest, Robbie Ashford. But I'm going to go in here and think about Joe Milton. I think this guy was very close to Hendon Hooker. And the fact that he went to Josh Heupel and said, I want to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I think he owns this locker room. And as someone said the other day, Vince Ferrara covers Tennessee for us up in Knoxville. He better.
Well, yeah. Remember, he's lost his job a couple of times,
Yeah.
right? He was a starting quarterback in Michigan, lost that job. That's why he ended up in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Won the starting job over Hendon Hooker and then lost that job to Hendon Hooker. So we'll see if sitting and watching and getting to enjoy the show that we all watched last year, the Hooker to Hyatt continued hookups over everybody's head. Maybe that's the same thing. You know, maybe the defenses haven't been able to catch on. Not everybody has all the talent that Georgia has on defense to be able to stop them. It's one thing to do what Georgia did. It's another one we don't have the guys that Georgia had. So maybe we're not going to be able to do it. So it's a good opportunity for Joe Milton. I think he's like 25 or 27 years of age. So good for him. But yeah, he needs to lead it. And, people are going to, can they, they get Georgia at home this year. So, can they take Georgia down this season, right? They got to go to Alabama, right? They got to replace, so they got to replace both of those wide receivers. And I'm sure there's others. So we'll see on how Joe Milton does.
Yeah. Well, and the key is with Josh Heupel, in the first 2 years he's been at Tennessee, he's broken every offensive record ever. Like last year, Tennessee's offense outscored opponents in the first half 337 to 150. That is a powerful stat, but he's done it 2 years in a row. What do you think? The shelf life of an offense or a defense is maybe 3 years. People pay coordinators and assistant coaches a lot of money to figure this out and slow people down. Josh Heupel is very smart, though. He'll run four wides, but empty set backfield, no. They can run the ball when they need to. Case in point, his first year at Tennessee, they go on the road to Missouri. Not that Missouri's Alabama or Georgia or LSU, but they ran the ball for 453 yards. When you can run the ball like that against an SEC opponent, you got talent. And think about it.
Yeah, that's what you can do. So that's what Napier was able to do with, and for the Cajuns, right, to have 3 or 4 wide and run it down your throat. You spread the defense out, and then you got it covering all the receivers. Now you don't have the linebackers in there. You're in a dime defense or a nickel defense, and now you can run it. And now all you got to do is, beat it at the point of attack, offensive line versus defensive line. And if you got a good running back, they're at the second level before you can do anything. One more move, and all of a sudden we're off to the races. So yes, I like running out of passing sets. It does when the defense makes a play, it's usually pretty impressive. I also don't like Rob telegraphing the plays. I'm not a big fan of that. On 4th and 1, I don't necessarily like you got to beat your man. Well, if they know what's coming. Let's not run everybody to the right side and then run it to the right side. It's a little bit easy to stop it. So I do like running out of passing sets. And nobody has figured out, Saban couldn't figure it out. Georgia figured it out, but I think Jalen Carter had a lot to do with Georgia figuring it out, right? Unless you have a Jalen Carter inside, you may not be able to figure out Tennessee. So we'll see. Meanwhile, Virginia has all kinds of issues. That's going to be a problem. So it'll be interesting to see on how that goes as well.
Yeah. Dave, look, run out of time. Got to go to a break. First off, let people know how they can keep up with you, what all's going on. We'll get you back on early next week because there's a lot of football. We got it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I mean, it is just the ultimate weekend for people that just love football. And it's a celebration. The women of the world, the wives, absolutely love it. And they're all in on this stuff, but let people know how they can keep up with it.
Speaking of the women, I mean, that Nebraska site with the volleyball was outstanding. They drew more. They drew more than Nebraska football does. So that was outstanding for Nebraska volleyball. People can follow me at SchultzCast, SchultzCast. I'm impressed I spelled that correctly the first time. Lockdown Sunbelt. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcast. Rob, we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Georgia State, a very entertaining ball game yesterday against Rhode Island. Some questionable decisions by Rhode Island. Darren Granger was outstanding in his 5th year of college football. So look for Georgia State to do something, but their defense was awful. And there is a huge group of 5 matchup in New Orleans. South Alabama taking on Tulane. The winner of that one is going to be looking at a New Year's 6-day bowl game. Those two teams are the winningest 2 teams getting together this week, right? There's only one ranked matchup. That's LSU and Florida State.
Yep.
Nobody's got more wins from last year than South Alabama and Tulane combined. 22 wins going at it. It's a huge opportunity for the Jaguars. And then, by the way, Rob, Tulane's got Ole Miss coming into town. So I don't know if you're going to have a trap game on your first season opener, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to it. Cajuns hosting Northwestern State. We will be at that ball game wearing red already for the Cajuns. Yeah,
well, and like you said, that South Alabama-Tulane game at Holman Stadium in New Orleans, 22 wins between them. We all remember Tulane getting the win in the Cotton Bowl. Michael Pratt is back.
Yep.
And Ole Miss, they better be ready because they're walking into this an ambush. Tulane is for real.
Tulane is for real. Yeah, I agree. I still got
David,
South Alabama winning the football game 38-31.
If it's that'll be a great game if it's that close. I mean, if that's a shootout. All right, David, thanks so much for being with us. Have a great weekend. We'll get you back on early in the week talking Sunbelt, SEC. We'll take a quick break. We're at Biddy and Beau's Coffee, downtown Auburn. Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, is with us right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Got a lot to talk about today, and we got Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers with us right now. We're at Biddy and Beau's, downtown Auburn. Come by here and get great coffee. Guy May, hell, I've known Guy for about 40 years. Sigma with me down here at Auburn. Great business right next to Auburn Bank, and it's college football season. Tigers about to start off this weekend, and you know one thing, Jason, I always tell people this. I don't care who Auburn's playing. If I'm an Auburn fan, I'm coming to see Auburn play. I want to see Auburn get better. Let's get your thoughts on what you want to see from Auburn in terms of getting better and just last year to this year. What do you want to see happen?
Yeah, I think you look at it, Rob. It's just it's just an interesting time. There's so many new players, so many new things that are going on, and so when you look at this roster. The first thing, there's two things, and I have two T's going into this game: turnovers and tackling. That to me, that's the first thing in this game. Because the first goal is to win, and to me, the first thing to do and win a game is to not turn it over a bunch and tackle well on defense. That's where it starts. We saw, a few years ago when Auburn played Mercer, that wasn't a close game, but Auburn turned it over 5 or 6 times, and all of a sudden it becomes a close game. Mm-hmm. That's how this would happen. If you don't turn it over, then I think Auburn is in good shape. And, Rob, you mentioned the last segment, that's how physical this Auburn team could be offensively. And I think it's going to be a physical offensive team. I think they're going to be able to run the football, but this is also a very, very interesting UMass defense because of their defensive coordinator. They're going to bring blitzes. They're going to try to force Auburn to do some things they don't want to do. And I think we're going to see a lot of RPO game, even though people are like, I don't know if you need to show anything. Well, when they start putting 7 or 8 guys up there, you're going to have to show something. So I think they're going to run the offense and do those things. Hugh Freeze said last night, hey, Peyton Thorne's had a good week. Robbie Ashford's had a good week. I think this is an offensive line that can do some things. And so I think offensively they're fine. Defensively, get a little bit of a test with Tyson Pumachan over there at quarterback and doing the things he does. They can run it a little bit. We'll get a little bit of an idea because, hey, in the face of preseason, you don't really know. We've heard, the Auburn can run the ball and have an issue stopping it. Well, are they having issues stopping it because this team can really run the ball, or is it a little bit of both? We'll start to get a little bit of that idea for the first time on Saturday.
Yeah, and if you're Auburn and the offensive line, Hugh Freeze made a comment a few weeks ago. They're wearing those pads on the helmets. I don't know if they're blowing off the line of scrimmage, so I have to ask Jake Thornton. And I say, hey, are we really looking good? what can you tell from the limited time that you get to go to practice is different about the offensive line this far into Jake Thornton's first year as their head coach, as their offensive line coach?
Yeah, I think physical maturity is the big thing. And Auburn had some of that last year. And people say, well, yeah, but they were, how good were they? Well, at the end of the year, that team ran for how many yards against Alabama? 300-400. I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
The most a Nick Saban team had ever given up.
Yeah.
So physically, they were mature. They were just doing the wrong things on offense. Well, that's part of how you succeed, is doing the right things based on your talent. This is a group that I think is going to be able to run the football too. And, people have to remember Jake Thornton was the offensive line coach at Ole Miss last year.
Correct.
People think about Ole Miss, and they think about Ole Miss being Lane Kiffin, spread it out, do all these trick things. Well, that team led the country in rushing last year. They ran the football. Jake Thornton, he wants to be physical on the offensive line. So I think that's going to be a trademark when you think about Avery Jones at center coming in, veteran, older guy, Dylan Wade at left tackle, Gunnar Britton, Cam Stutz, the guy that's played a lot of football and has been around for a long time. Then you add Isaiah Too Tall Miller in there. You got Jeremiah Wright. You got Tate Johnson. They built some depth with this group. And so I think it's an offensive line, to me, that should be a strength of this team as they head into the season. Now, like any offensive line, you can't withstand a bunch of injuries. They don't have that much depth, but I think it's a group that has a chance to come out and be much better, in my opinion, especially when you factor in the offensive system that goes along with it.
Yeah.
I think that makes a big deal too.
When you look at the tight end position, Auburn's got some guys over there, Tyler Fromm, Luke Deal, Ronaldo Fairweather. You've got Brandon Frazier, and I know I'm leaving somebody off, but we heard for years with Gus, we're going to get Butter, Butter, and we're going to use the tight end. Why is it so hard to incorporate the tight end into your offensive game plan week in and week out? Because to me, we have Ben Troop on here every week. He was the tight end for Florida and played in the NFL, and I learned a lot about that position. But he said, hell, even I had to wait kind of in the wilderness for 3 years, and I got that 1 year, and I became an All-American, and that led me to 5 years in the NFL. Is it that tough of a position to play?
It's not that tough, but again, it all comes back to scheme. You've got to be able to scheme those things. And the difference is that the tight end position can either be the tight end position from 1985, or it can be the tight end position from 2023. Because if it's the tight end position from 1985, then that guy's not going to catch a lot of passes. He's going to be a glorified offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And they're still going to do some of that. Luke Deal will tell you, hey, we still connect to the offensive line, and Luke Deal and those guys are going to do some of those things. But they're running routes. I mean, they have a route tree at Auburn for tight ends for the first time that I can remember. I don't remember anything like that. Now, they ran routes, but they didn't have a route tree. And so they're doing those things to add more to that tight end room. Now, I say all that to say this. I'm not expecting Rivaldo Fairweather to go out and catch 8 passes Saturday. I don't think that's going to be a guy that they want to show a bunch of for down the road. I think we've talked enough about him that opponents will go, hey, that's a guy I probably need to pay attention to. Yeah. But I don't think you want to show your whole hand in week 1 against UMass. Now, I think he'll be involved, but he's a guy that's different than Auburn's had, in my opinion. I don't remember anybody like him in terms of his ability to catch the ball at 6'5", 250 and do the things he's done. But you're right. They're going to rotate. I would guess we'll see. You mentioned we've already talked about Luke Deal, Rivaldo Fairweather, Tyler Fromm, Brandon Frazier's there, and Micah Riley Ducker too. Yeah, I think we'll see 4 guys in the first half on Saturday. I think we're going to see a bunch of tight ends. We're going to see more rotation in a half, not dependent on the score than I can remember for an Auburn team. I think we're going to see a lot of different players out there, and I think the coaches want to see what different combinations look like.
I like what you said, not dependent upon the score, because I look at games like, what does the defense give up? What does the offense score when the game's in play? If you've got nothing against the 3rd and 4th team guys, they've got to play. If you don't develop them, they won't be there next year. But that philosophy is, to me, the best philosophy, because those guys, it's like if you've got a great A team and you've got a really good B team, but there's just only so many spots to play, you let those Bs play a lot of the A slots. And just like the reps, the number 1 quarterback, he's going to get most of the reps. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Robbie Ashford. This is a guy that, Jason, you've got more time looking at these guys than anybody, and played at Hoover, goes to Oregon, and just kind of put it in perspective for people. How and William Halliday, the interns over here to our left, you played baseball all through high school. He played baseball 2 years at Oregon, but he didn't play football. He comes back to Auburn, the 12th winningest program in the history of college football. There's a lot of expectations. What does he look like after a year? I think he's been training in Birmingham at the flyover by, Protective Life Stadium. He's been working with some people, but what do you see different?
Yeah, no, Robbie's a guy that, you're right. He played baseball at Oregon. He didn't play football in terms of getting on the field, but he played football.
Okay.
Yeah. He played football, but he just never played.
Yeah.
They had other guys at quarterback, so he's a guy that's been doing some of those things. But I think when you look at Robbie, the athleticism is there. I mean, it jumps out at you. He's a guy that has all the tools. And you mentioned, I heard you talking about to me, if you stuck Robbie Ashford on 2013 Auburn, that he would look very similar to Nick Marshall. People have tried to compare those guys. Again, it's all about system. Last year, if Nick Marshall had been on last year's team, you would have asked Nick Marshall to run a system that Tom Brady was running with the New England Patriots. It wasn't going to work. He wasn't going to do that either.
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to factor in. It's all about system. This is a system that fits Robbie Ashford much better. I think he's going to have a part in this system. Peyton Thorne's a guy that, from an RPO standpoint, this one is such an experienced offensive system. That's why getting a guy like that was really important for them, because it's all about reading a defense, and the quarterback and wide receiver, tight end, all those guys have to be on the same page all the time. And I think people have been maybe a little bit misconception a little bit about when Freeze talks about, the wide receivers and they got to run full speed all the time. It sounds like they're just loafing, but no, they're doing what wide receivers have always done. When they call a running play and it goes the other direction, a wide receiver jogs his guy off to the side, and that's it. Yeah. Well, in this offense, every play is a pass play, because the quarterback can pull the ball and it can be a passing play. So you better be running a route determined on what that defense shows you, and that's what the quarterback's counting on. So that's the thing. It takes just some getting used to, but Robbie's a guy that's improved. Holden Garner's improved. Peyton Thorne. I think this quarterback room is in much better shape than it has been the last few years. Some of that's because of the guys. Some of it's because of the system they played in.
Yeah. Let's look at the running back room. You got Jarquez Hunter, Damari Austin, Sean Jackson's now on scholarship. You've got Jeremiah Cobb out of Catholic. And, I talked to a guy that played high school football with him. He said, "Sir, he is the real deal." He goes, "I've never had a guy come out of the backfield." He was his quarterback. He said, "He has great hands." He goes, "You just can't coach that." And then we're talking about Brian Batey, little guy. And everybody wants to say Ontario McCaleb, who was out of, that's just, no, he's not. Ontario was just a different kind of guy.
He's much more Lionel James than Ontario McCaleb in terms of a guy that runs bigger. He runs like a big running back, even though he's small. Lionel James was a guy that ran like he weighed 195 pounds.
Yes.
Brian Batey's the same kind of guy. Like, he gets low. He is, and I love Sean Shivers, one of my favorite kids. He's what people kind of expected Sean Shivers to be, which is the guy that dances in the hole, then gets north and south, does those things. Sean Shivers was Derrick Henry at 5'6", 185 pounds.
Yeah.
He was a downhill, run behind the pads guy. Brian Batey's a guy that will get in there, run between the tackles, but he's not just a speed sweep guy. You're right.
Yeah.
It's a running back room that has a lot of different parts that are fun.
Yeah.
And going to be interesting to see how they all fit together.
I mean, I love Cowboys, what I call Jarquez Hunter, because he loves riding horses. He's from Philadelphia, Mississippi, Neshoba County. I've run the Hardy-Dixie Triathlon over there. That is hill country, and there's horses everywhere. He's a hardcore work ethic kind of guy that just, you can yell at people, but as soon as they get out of your sight, because I got 4 kids, they're not listening to you. He does it internally. And I think he makes everybody around him better, because he's not going to let them take a day off. He's been working with Brad Lester too. Brad's one of my favorite running backs ever at Auburn. Had 20 touchdowns out of Lilburn, Georgia, Parkview High School. what is different about Jarquez? Because I know he's also training Alabama's running backs and Tennessee's running backs. And there's a thing on Twitter, which one of these will lead the SEC in rushing this year? Can it be Jarquez Hunter?
I don't think so, because I don't think he's going to get I think this is going to be a different group. I don't think this is going to be Trey Mason, where you look up and the guy has 45 carries in the game. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think Damari Alston's going to be a guy that's going to get his 10 to 12 touches. Then you got Brian Battie, I think 7 to 10 touches. Yeah. You have a couple for a Jeremiah Cobb in there mixed in. I just don't see, and I do think the hot hand comes in, and if you get the hot hand thing, but I just don't see, this being a team where, you look up and a guy has 300 carries at the end of the year. Yeah. And that's what it takes to lead this league in rushing. That I look at that and I see, Arkansas. To me, that's where I think that's where the leading rusher in this league comes from, a team like that. When you go, hey, we've got one guy, we're going to run the football and lean heavily on that. For Auburn, I think it's going to be much more of a group effort.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I tend to agree with you. I just couldn't see. It's not that Jarquez isn't good enough to get 1,500 yards, but I see more of the wishbone when I was here with Brent Fullwood, Lionel James, Tommy Agee, Tim Jesse, Collis Campbell, Vincent Jackson, guys like that. I mean, Beau's first year, he had 853 yards. Michael Dyer had 1,057, but Michael had $1 million worth of athletic ability and about $1.98 worth of common sense. And had he had his head together, he may have broken a lot of records. Just like if Beau would have run out of the I formation for 4 straight years, he may have had 8,000 yards. But I'm with you. Now, let's switch to defense. I read a great article a couple of years ago in The Athletic about Ron Roberts and the creeper defense, Delta State, the Fighting Okra, Southeast Louisiana. Then he goes to Baylor. And again, I'll just kind of put my comments in context. We know Jeff Levy had already said, I'm going to Oklahoma to be the offensive coordinator. Matt Corral gets hurt early in the game, but Baylor suffocated Ole Miss. And there was a pretty good argument in the locker room from my Ole Miss friends told me about Corral. Should he go back in or not? But it's designed, the creeper defense, to slow down and confuse RPO offenses. And you like that? I love it.
I think it's good because in the end, and this is why it's hard to figure out maybe a preseason what's going on. Because you'll show some of those things to your own team.
Yeah.
But you're also, the offense has to be able to run its stuff too. And so you start doing a bunch of that stuff. If all you do is mess them up all day, then they're not getting any better either.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to pick your battles a little bit. So they add a little bit by little bit. When they get into a game, we'll see more of those things. And, we'll see how much of it we see on Saturday against UMass. But there's a few guys I really want to see. I want to see how they're used and how it looks. Obviously, the jack position, you look at Elijah McAllister, Steven Sings, and Jalen McLeod, how those guys are used maybe differently, how you can do those things. The other guy to me is a guy that I've known and watched for a long time. I really believe Cam Riley's a guy that has a place in the defense for the first time.
Yeah.
For 3 years, they've asked him to play a traditional linebacker spot. But that's not who he is. I kind of akin it to asking Trey Blackman to play middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Trey Blackman was okay as a middle linebacker, but he was a guy that wanted to attack. That was in his nature. Cam Riley's a guy that has been here 3 years. He's 6'5", 240 now. Long, athletic, long arm, leverage guy. Doesn't have a sack. Does not have a career sack. Cam Riley does not have one. I think that's going to change. I think he's a guy that you can use in a pass rush scheme to do some things, and he hasn't been asked to do that before. So that's a guy I look at in this system when I think back to watching TCU last year. And it was a similar type of defense, and they had linebackers that created some havoc, especially against Michigan. Him and Eugene Asante, the speed, long, athletic guys, how you factor those guys into the pass rush scheme, for me, is going to be something to watch.
Well, and you've broken this down a lot for us brilliantly on the show every week. 41 new guys in here via high school or the portal. Another statistic that really jumps out is the February of 21. We know Brian Harsin wasn't even introduced until Christmas Eve, so he missed the December signing period. And the coaches at Auburn held together what they could, but in February, still ended up about 19th in the country. But now, as we sit here today at Biddy and Beau's Coffee in downtown Auburn, One player
One guy.
from that class of 21, Cowboy, is on that team, Jarquez Hunter.
That's it. You got one guy from an entire signing class. It's remarkable, and it shows you exactly why this coaching staff had to do what they did, which is rebuild an entire roster. Somebody asked me yesterday, I had a speaking engagement. They asked me about like offensive line. I'm like, look, they're going to sign some high school guys and develop them. That's what they do. But they have no choice last year, and they're going to have no choice this year. They're going to have to go sign a few more transfer guys to fill in those holes because you can't sign and expect to sign a starting guy that's a true freshman. You just can't do it. You might get one of those guys rarely, but you can't go expecting it. So you're going to have to bridge gaps and build it slowly that way. But because of the portal and because of what they were able to do, I've said it and I'll say it again, they've gone from not having a chance to giving themselves a chance in 2023.
And you go back, the 2012 team was the worst since 1950. I know that because my dad was in school here in 1950. We lost to Wofford. He goes, and we fired Earl Browne at the end of the season. He said he was a very nice man, Notre Dame graduate, and we hired Shug Jordan. And you think about the portal, you know, Tony Barnhart Monday night was at the Touchdown Club in Memphis, and he said, coaches will tell you they hate the portal, but they really love it because they can go get help immediately. You said it last year. Without the portal, without this infusion of talent, Auburn was looking at another worst team in 60 or 70 years.
Well, it would have been 2012 was the
benchmark.
a brutal season.
Wow.
But it wasn't a team that didn't have talent.
No.
That came from decision making. Again, how do you fit? Offensive scheme, defensive scheme were just totally off for that team, for that roster. Combine that with some questionable guys, and it just imploded pretty quickly. But you saw the next year with a few pieces, it was also a roster that had some pretty darn talented guys. Yeah. And now you look at this one. This is a completely different scenario. This is not 92 to 93. Yeah. This is not 2012 to 2013. This is closer to 99, 2000, in my opinion. That 98 coming to 99, that roster was one that did not have a ton of guys. This is closer to that to me.
99 to 2000?
Yes. Yeah. When Tommy Tuberville took over that first 99 team, this is closer to that type of roster. But I thought that team had more players than this one did. Yeah. Now, because they didn't have a transfer portal then. And you know, that was a team that had been Lear State healthy. They make a bowl game in year one with that roster.
Oh, yeah.
This team would not have been able to do that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been able to do it. Now, because of the portal, you also lost guys that would have stayed otherwise. And, you know, they would not have been gone in 1999 because they wouldn't have anywhere to go. But because the way it is now, this was a roster that was going to be a 3-9 team, in my opinion. And now you look at it and things fall right. You're going to have a chance to compete with lots of folks this fall and stay healthy and, you know, find a couple difference makers on defense. If you can find a couple of those guys, you got a shot then to go out and compete with some pretty good teams.
Yeah, I'm going to paint a picture here. Looking at your schedule in June or July is like flying 35,000 feet over the Amazon rainforest like you did 4 years ago coming back from Buenos Aires to Atlanta, 10 and a half hours. It looks pretty, you know, cool from 35,000 feet, but it's totally different when you're down there in it. Once you start the season, the psychology, the body language, everything starts to change. I mean, look at Florida right now. It's damage control. Like, wow, what a miserable performance last night. I don't care what people pick you. You know, that's on you whether you believe it or not. One thing Hugh Freeze has been great at throughout his career, we've watched him since he was at Briarcrest in Memphis, is he gets his guys to believe in the system and to believe in each other. And you talked about it, and Mark Murphy. Y'all, I couldn't get you to budge about recruiting. You said, I just don't think the Boise guys understand recruiting down here. Let's fast forward to right now. DeMarcus Riddick, Perry Thompson. They ain't the only ones that are going to flip, but kind of got a lot of people listening. I got a bunch of texts. They said, ask Jason this question. When these kids, like these 2 5-stars that flipped to Auburn, and there could be more, can you tell us it was true that they were barely even contacted by the previous? It wasn't that Cadillac and Zach and those guys weren't. but it starts at the top. When the head coach on a Sunday afternoon, the family's there for a visit, I don't have time to talk to you. If I treated my clients in my financial advisory practice like that, I would have 0 clients. By the way, you'd be a great financial analyst because you are a truth broker. You don't BS, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it starts at the top. If your head coach isn't recruiting, doesn't matter what the other guys do.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. You can build all the relationships you want to, but if they don't hear from the head coach, then those guys are like, there's 2 guys, head coach and coordinator. Position coaches get you there, and they might take you home, but it's those other guys that finish the deal.
Yeah.
And players, kids, they want to know who I'm playing for, and does that guy believe in me? Because your position coach can believe in you all you want to, but if the head coach and coordinator don't believe in you, you're not going to play.
Yeah.
And so you got to know that guy. You got to know that relationship. And by talking to kids, especially the last couple of years, because of the COVID and everything, to me, it's made relationships more important. And NIL's there and all that stuff is, but if you don't have a relationship with a guy, it doesn't matter how much money you give them, because somebody else is going to give them something close. So they go, well, I know those guys.
Yeah.
You got to have a relationship. That's the key. Hugh Freeze and this staff have done a great job of that. And yes, there are a lot of guys in this class that weren't even contacted other than, hey, how's it going? Come up to a game, and then came to a game, and the head coach didn't speak to them, didn't do those things. That's where it starts. That's where it ends. And you look at the results already.
Yeah.
They've gotten guys in the state of Alabama. They've gone to Georgia, and they're going to get more. And if the season starts to build a little momentum and you start to show some things on the field and throw the ball around, they'll add even more.
Yeah. Well, I go back, we're about out of time, but a friend of mine was telling me that at a rival SEC school, talking to one of the coaches why they didn't get this big time player. And he said, hey, he goes, well, he comes over to campus all the time. He goes, but that's on his dime. He goes, yeah. He goes, have you been to his house yet? What time do they eat dinner? What's his mother? What's her favorite food? What is she like? Where do they go to church? If you don't go spend the time with them and get to know them on their level, as well as them coming to you, it ain't going to happen. They call them COVID recruiters. Well, I've been texting them, or I've been playing video games, or I've been playing Fortnite. At the end of the day, it ain't the kids that are the problem. My kids all tell me that. They go, Dad, it's the parents. They think, well, all we want to do is get an iPad and be pushed over in the corner, or put me on some ADD medicine so I won't bother you. They want – what did Rodney Garner say about Coach Dye when he came to visit him? He said after dinner, he didn't sit on the couch and watch my mother clean up. He took all the dishes in and washed dishes with her. And when he left, she goes, that's where you're going. I mean, it matters. You nailed it.
It does. Everything matters, and that's it. It's part of it. It's part of why when you start looking at it, it's going to be part of their foundation is relationships, recruiting on this team, everything about it, and that's where it starts. That's where it ends, and that's what Auburn's always been built around, and Auburn is back to doing those things again.
Yeah, they're back in business. Jason, it's Auburn Undercover. I'm a sentimental guy, man. I got the first copy from Murphy, and I got Coach Dye to sign it August of '81. We were going into my senior year of high school. My mother drove my friend Clay and I back from Destin. My dad flew back. We just came through Auburn. I'll never forget. He signed that first one. I don't know where it is. I can't find it. It's right where my dad – original issue of the Superman comic book #1. He can't find that either.
Yeah.
But I love what you do. Mark is my journalism mentor, and you are Sports Writer of the Year in Alabama. We got an intern for the Plainsman over here. Tell people how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work, and always it's a treasure to have you on here. I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, you can check us out, auburnundercover.com, part of the 24/7 network, and kickoff special right now. So if you've never signed up before, you get 50% off a subscription. And for the cord cutters, streamers of the world, that includes Paramount Plus. So you get a Paramount Plus subscription with that 50% off. So check that out. And also follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
Hey, always a pleasure. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. We're at Biddy and Beau, downtown Auburn, next to Auburn Bank, on the opening weekend. Big opening weekend of college football. Right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, Go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We got the intern in here, William Halliday, here with us right now. Beau Carter out in Carrollton, Texas, the Metroplex. And we got these headsets up here pretty loud. You can hear us. We're at Biddy and Beau's Coffee, downtown Auburn, next to Auburn Bank. Beau, great stuff as always. Jason Caldwell, great writer. Again, what do we always say? Your writers are typically your best guests because they think about what they're saying because they wrote it. Dad, being an architect, says, I can design a 120-story skyscraper, but without the mechanical engineers and the civil engineers, it will not work, okay? You teach journalism. You were SID at Mississippi State, National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers Association of America. You're working on a book right now. You know what I think is the coolest part about this, Beau, is here we are with the intern from the Auburn Plainsman. Ken Capps still celebrating his birthday. Didn't get a response back from him, which means he may be down in old Mexico right now. He could be at the Alamo celebrating. As they said about Daniel Simpson Day in Animal House, Daniel Simpson Day has no grade point average. We're all classes incomplete. Beau, let's get your thoughts real quick. They're in the Metroplex. SMU to the ACC, along with Stanford and Cal. That just makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Hey, by William, I'm glad he didn't elope with Suni Lee and while he was in Mentone this year. So
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
Hey,
you were
great
at camp. What was the name of the camp you were
I
at?
was at Alpine Camp for Boys.
Oh,
I
man,
was at
that's
Alpine
nice.
Camp for Boys for the summer.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Okay. Yeah. Beau, how long does SMU have to wait before they can start drinking from the well, getting a check from the ACC?
It's could be a while, Rob. It was funny. The ACC commissioner was here Wednesday for they had the college football playoff executive committee meeting, and they're talking about maybe going from 12 to 8 teams with the demise of the Pac-12. So that could be a brand new development there. We're not sure. I know Greg Sankey wants to keep it at 12 so they can get 6 or 7 SEC
Yeah.
SEC teams in there, for personal reasons. But no, it's just mass mayhem out there. Oregon, of course, Oregon, Washington going to the Big Ten. Cal and Stanford are like two of the bridesmaids or whatever out there waiting for invitations. And I know the Big 12 has said they're going to stick with 16 for now. They don't want to expand, and the Big 10's kind of an awkward place with 18. So it's really the ball's kind of in the ACC's court and just waiting to see what happens. Plus, the thing that complicates the whole thing is that grant of rights deal that goes through 2036. So, and SMU has said publicly it would not take TV money for, I think, maybe 5 years if they got in the ACC. So they're giving away a lot of money there.
Yeah. And, we had Tommy Kane on, who's formerly with ACC Network, ACC Road Trip, Fox Sports in Atlanta. He's in Atlanta. I think he's back in Charlotte now. He was totally against it. He's an NC State alum. But again, geographically, it just, as JW said down there at the Feed and Seed, it just don't make no damn sense. But what does make sense anymore? Didn't the Talking Heads have a great song in the mid '80s? Stop Making Sense.
Yeah, that's right.
David Byrne.
And the one thing William can
Tell it to us.
Oh yeah, no, I wish I could sing it, but no, I remember that song. But no, William and people in his position, student athletes who are playing, you've got some tough where you're trying to get from Raleigh, North Carolina to Stanford or Cal or whatever on a football weekend. You're going to get back 6 or 7 in the next morning. There, even worse, your Eastern time over there on those road trips. You got volleyball, softball, baseball.
Yeah.
It's I mean it could be a lot of missed class time, and just it's very hard to justify. But again, it's all about the money, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm gonna get to William in a second, but the volleyball game on a Tuesday night, Rutgers, let's say Southern Cal at Rutgers on a Tuesday night in Piscataway, New Jersey. Yeah. Maybe there's a chance you get some bad weather, snow, sleet, freezing rain. We all know how much fun it is to be in an airport for 2 or 3 days, sleeping on the floor with a layover. I'm sorry, your flight's been canceled. We know that. I guess maybe they're going to carpool from the West Coast to the East Coast and vice versa. But it's nuts. William, let me tell you something. You are growing up in some crazy times. But also being in the financial markets that I am, the market will correct all this stuff because the free market, we'll get to it. But your dad, your mom, your dad is, I grew up with him. He's a traditionalist. When you talk to him about this stuff, does he go, man, this doesn't make any sense? Or does he think it's cool? Do you think it's a good idea? ACC, Pac-12, all coming together.
Yeah, I think we both think it's kind of stupid, just basically because it ruins all the rivalries that I grew up with, and just different people like going from the West Coast to East Coast, stuff like that. There's a guy from my high school that just signed with Stanford, and now he's got to work on studies and he's got to work on plan that into his travel schedule because he's going to be going like 3,000 miles across the country just to go play a game on a Saturday. And who knows what else then. So we both think it's kind of stupid and not that great for college football, but who knows, maybe the other teams will get some money out of it. That's apparently what they're all in this for.
Well, Beau, the thought that people do things purely for the money, I mean, expand on that.
It's just, I mean, I said after we kid around, after COVID-19, I had to rent a car on this trip to Philadelphia, and now they're requesting a $500 security deposit for just like a 2-day rental car deal. William's a financial guy too, and Rob, you know about that. I think everybody's trying to make up all the money they lost during COVID in like 1 or 2 years or whatever. Yeah. Same thing goes for athletics, man. Everybody took a big hit. The conferences all, distributed less money. The football attendance, you were limited how much attendance you could have, and the Pac-12 took a gigantic hit on that thing with all the restrictions, California and Oregon. So they're scrambling around, and there's still talk about maybe a Mountain West Conference and Pac-12 merger because they've got the automatic NCAA bids. They'll have the college football playoff automatic bids, or first consideration. So it would make sense to keep the Pac-12 alive, but it just seems like it's there's more disintegration every day.
Well, comment here from one of our listeners, Junior Samples, just said SMU is the big winner. Now, SMU, a very impoverished school without a lot of money. I'm being facetious. What do they even care? Again, how much money do their boosters? Now, we know 40 years ago, they got a little carried away, which led to the guillotine, the death penalty. But do they still, the people in Dallas, one thing that they've been doing is trying to brand Dallas, not SMU. It's called, they put Dallas on those shirts. So the Metroplex there's a lot of people there. Are they ready to ramp it up and go back in time? Let's go back in time to the future.
Yeah. Robbie made a good choice. SMU is just about 40 years ahead of its time on the NIL. they jumped the gun a little bit on the NIL there.
A little bit, yes.
But no, there's plenty of SMU's just in the midst of building a $340 million end zone complex that's going to bowl the stadium over there. Brand new training table, meeting rooms. It's going to be state of the art stuff, and you can see it in their recruiting. I think they've got 36 transfers on this year's team. They're trying to rebuild quickly. So, and they're again financial markets here, and SMU's got some very prominent alumni. So they're going for it. They like to be competitive. The one big problem they have, and this is one thing that's held them back. I think it kept them out of the Big 12 when they made their moves. They're averaging about 18,000 game in football for whatever reasons. I guess, after the death penalty, attendance just dropped off, and they've and William can appreciate this. The students go to the boulevard for parties. Don't show up for the game. It's just for like a big social event.
Yeah.
So it's, it's interesting.
Well, the game is an afterthought. For both of y'all, and Oregon, I think Stanford has an athletic endowment of well over $500 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Cal, Auburn's going out to Cal next week. I mean, people down here, it's going to be a culture shock for a lot of people to go out there. Remember, Tennessee went out there and they had all those weirdos hanging up in the trees, protesting, saving some lizard or skunk or something. I don't know what it was, but the cultural fit, Cal and Stanford with the ACC. Now, some of the elites at UVA and Chapel Hill, they may get together and wear their ascots and celebrate elitism, but most of the ACC footprint in the South is very similar to the SEC footprint. But, Beau, I'm going to throw a wild one at you. I'm going to throw a swag at you. Scientific wild-ass guess. Do you think the people in charge might come to their senses and say, let's put football on a separate island with the 85 scholarships, and then all these other sports, there's 91 of them, will play their deal, and football will be its own separate deal? Because Jackie Sherrill said it 31 years ago, at the Touchdown Club in Memphis. We're going to have 4 super conferences.
Mm-hmm.
He also said all those other schools need their own national championship, and I can assure you it will be just as important to them. I know that that's a lot to unpack, but let's try.
No, we've talked about it on the show. The ideal thing that ESPN and all the networks would like would be the 4 super conferences with 16 teams. You've got an automatic draw. You could even have a postseason, 4 conference winners, then 4 at large or 8 at large teams, where you've got a perfect mathematical draw for those math majors and business people out there. But it's and there's a major move. The NCAA hired Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker to run the and they really been in a slide situation there with the previous with Mark Emmert there for several years. So they're trying to make a move to keep football together. But I mean, there's with the money involved, there could easily be a breakaway, football conference and then the NCAA on a separate level.
Well, here's a question from one of our listeners. And he says, our thoughts on SMU finally getting a seat at the table. Now, we've been talking about them, but listen, they've got a great business school. They've got a lot of very wealthy alumni. And I think it's kind of like Memphis with the University of Memphis. I think Memphis is so divided with so many fan bases there. But I think they're waiting. You're not going to get the attention of the big boys unless you're putting 60,000 in the Liberty Bowl, regardless of the opponent. They like to see that. But I say that, but Houston doesn't draw well, and they got into the Big 12. That market in Houston is a big market. But how much of it is Houston Cougar fans? I don't think it's a whole lot.
No.
I mean, I would be silly and say they move the needle like DePaul moves the needle in the Chicago TV market. Right. Or Christian Brothers University, the Buccaneers move the needle in Memphis. I don't know. But you're there in Dallas. You know a lot of those folks there at SMU. Are they doing backflips going, man, we're in there?
No, I had a lunch this week with SMU's faculty rep, really good guy, Dr. Dean Paul Rogers, and he's kind of just sort of keeping an open mind. And Rob, that's a great comparison between Memphis and Dallas. You probably got as many Tennessee fans in Memphis as you do, or more Tennessee fans or Arkansas fans than you do. Same thing for SMU. This is a Dallas. This is a Texas A&M, even a ton of Arkansas people here, and they get tuition breaks for living in the Metroplex area. So they're SMU's kind of the little sister of the whole thing. Even there are a ton of TCU alumni in Dallas, for that matter, too, or the Arlington area metroplex. So it's it's a really hard paradigm as far as that goes. And then they've got plenty of money. There's no doubt about that. Sort of like Stanford, but they need to. The interest in athletics may not be what it is at SEC schools or wherever.
Well, here's an interesting comment from one of our listeners, Isaac Asimov, who says, Isaac Asimov says, SMU wants the academic union with Stanford, Cal, and Duke. Again, are we forming an academic league or are we forming an athletic league? William, jump on that one. What are you in college for? The parties, the academics, or sports? Be honest.
My parents want me to say academics, and I'll say
absolutely
myself. But something I wanted to say, just to touch on about the SMU Memphis debate, like the whole, like, yes, like the Big 12 and the different conferences would like to see Memphis pour in more money into the stadium, and that's actually an ongoing discussion in Memphis itself. One of the local writers in Memphis, Jeff Calkins, I read an article by him. The big question is, do we want to put more money into Memphis or into the Tiger Stadium, or do we want to make sure that the Memphis Grizzlies, the professional team, is still there for a long time? And to be honest, I think a lot of people would say the Memphis Grizzlies right now, just because of there are one pro sports team and just a lot of more people probably root for them compared to Memphis. Whereas a lot of people in Memphis probably root for more SEC team. But still, I think that it's still been a problem going on. Memphis fans have wanted to be in the Big 12 for a long time, and I think they got robbed of that chance or any other Big 5 conference where SMU got it.
Beau, we're going to have Dr. William Hargrave, the president of the University of Memphis. He'll be on the show Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Central. And I knew him at Auburn, but I've gotten to know him a lot better at Memphis. He was the dean of the College of Business, Louder Hall here at Auburn, and then the provost before he came to Memphis. You know how important a provost is. He executes the game plan that the president and the board of trustees put together in most cases. Auburn's had great leadership over the years. Think about Bobby Louder, 29 years. I don't know of anybody that loves Auburn like that man. I think Bobby Louder would take on King Kong and Godzilla if it meant defending Auburn. That's a compliment. He also won that Lifetime Achievement Award from Auburn last year. But does SMU have someone like a Bobby Louder? Do they have people that are proponents that fight for them? Because they're going to be in Dallas. They're going to be the flyover school. But they got a lot of money, so, you know, ugly people usually get married if they got a ton of money, and they're not ugly.
They did. Gerald Ford, not the former president, but the namesake of Ford Stadium is one of their big ones. He's with that Club Corp, Rob, that manages country clubs and golf courses. Where they're one of the big corporations out here. I can't remember the husband and wife's name that are the donors, primary donors. I think they gave $200 million of the $340 million for the.
They gave. Say that again.
Yeah, I think they gave $200 million of the $340 million for the football end zone facility. So they're high on the list.
They're going to be okay. I think they'll make.
I was just going to say, and then the Hunt, or Lamar Hunt, of course, played football at SMU. The Kansas City Chiefs, namesake, the late Lamar Hunt, and their family has Clark Hunt, the owner of the. Chiefs played soccer at SMU, interestingly. So they're kind of the back. They're a lot like several of the families at Vanderbilt and Auburn. They're not really out there, like throwing money around, but or like Paul Bryant Jr. at Alabama. They used to always say, "Hey, Paul Jr., we need $10 million for this." Okay, my secretary will get you a check tomorrow.
Yeah,
so, right. I mean, behind the scenes. So there are quite a few people like that, and again, but again, you've got the A&M and Texas people out here, really with big donations. So it's the field is wide open, to say the least.
Well, I know is it true there's a GoFundMe page? This is a question from one of our listeners, Buck Owens from Bakersfield, California, for Stanford to buy some lights for the baseball stadium. Yes, you think Texas might contribute to that?
That's right. Remember that they had they had the thing in the city of Palo Alto that you can't have a structure above such and plus it's the sunken diamond. So they're still trying to find that ball in the lights. Vanderbilt had that problem a couple of years ago against Tennessee. They lost a game. they just put in those new LED lights, and it was twilight, and the players weren't used to it, and they dropped 2 fly balls in the outfield. I think lost the game 5-3, whatever. So they spent quite a bit of time the next day watching, trying to hit fungos in the twilight, I guess.
Yeah, and Tim Corbin's been there about 20 years at Vanderbilt, and he's got that thing not on autopilot, but close to it. I mean, he's every year. William, you played high school baseball.
Yeah.
Any of your teammates play for Vanderbilt?
I can't say that they did. I don't know about that, but I do know that one of them went to LSU to go play baseball as well as Alabama.
Yeah, but Hampton, Maurice
Hampton.
Yeah, Maurice Hampton went to LSU. Then he ends up at Samford in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Beau, you write for Baseball Writers Association of America. College baseball, Major League Baseball. Here's something interesting on one of my text threads. Smiley, one of my fraternity brothers, the interesting thing here, and he says, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this. Wow, there's a lot of chatter going on this morning on this site, but he says he's been to 40 Major League Baseball stadiums, and Oracle is number 1, and Montreal's is number 40. Pat Cornelius from up in the mountains of North Georgia. I'm still Fenway, Wrigley, Oracle in that order. Toss up between Montreal and the old Kingdom as the biggest dumps. Your thoughts and comments, Coach. I'll hang up and go Bulldogs.
That's right. Don't forget Tropicana Field in St. Pete is one of the worst. The lighting, and they actually had an NCAA Final Four down there, which was really William. They had to bring in all kinds of lights and try to make it look presentable. And 40,000 signs, it still looked pretty dumpy down there. So no, but it's that would be a goal here one of these days. My age is working against me a little bit, but Oracle is one of the best ones. The Texas Rangers ballpark, except for the roof that looks like a barn, tin roof up there, but they've got the indoor with the retractable roof, and Minute Maid Park in Houston are 2 really nice. I mean, sort of have unique qualities to them or whatever too. Yeah. So and of course,
nobody's saying it, but the best team, the Atlanta Braves at the Battery, it's pretty cool. The whole setup is really cool.
It really is.
Keep your eyes on what's going on in Mobile, folks. Big stuff happening down there. Just watch out for the port city. All right, let's talk real quick. Yancy Porter's going to be on with us in about 8 minutes. Rebel Yell Hotline. Guys, watch that Florida game last night. Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, Allie Peak Wilbur, Ben Troop. Got a lot of people on here that cover the Gators. They know the Gators. Beau, you're the SID at Florida. It's game 1. It's a road game against the back-to-back Pac-12 champion Utah. Already, the people are out. Napier's got to go and all that crap. This is nuts. This is the world we live in. He just needs to win, but how many games is Florida looking like, based on what you saw last night, going to win in the SEC? They got Tennessee coming up in the Swamp September 16th.
Well, and they got the revenge game against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt beat them, I think, for the first time in 25 years.
In 1988.
I was going to say 34
years.
years. So that the Fighting Commodores will travel to Gainesville at probably 120 degrees. Hey, Rob, one thing, and this affects people, the altitude in Salt Lake City. I think they play the stadium's like at 6,500 feet or whatever. I know this affects teams when they go to Boulder, Colorado, and Colorado State or whatever too. I mean, Florida, they probably had oxygen on the sidelines, but it's plus it was probably 65 or 70 degrees, and Florida's been practicing in 98-degree weather with 100% humidity. So they probably were culture shock down there. Plus, I don't know whether it made the bulletin board. I just saw a blurb on the news yesterday that one of Florida's players said, "Boy, this is a little bitty play." See, the stadium was the Olympic Stadium there when they host the Winter Olympics. I think it seats 45,000 or whatever. But compared to Florida Field, it's not a gigantic stadium. So and Brigham Young, I mean, Utah's got some fantastic talent. Although I didn't want to. I don't think Cam Rising played last night either.
No.
I think he was hurt. So that was Utah's really play, and Coach Whittingham's really done a fantastic job. They've been in bowl for, I think, 14 consecutive years. Pac-12, going to the Big. They're going to be a force in the Big 12 when they get in there.
Well, they were on their third team quarterback last night and had 8 starters out. I was not focusing on Cam Rising. This is what people don't put enough into. Unless if you know anything about Kyle Whittingham, he always has quarterbacks. He's a hell of a coach. And in that game last night, without Cam Rising, without 8 of their starters, they still beat Florida 24-11. And a message to your Florida Gator teammates, and just don't say disparaging comments about your opponent's stadium. Just never put yourself in a position to fail. Don't use a toilet that doesn't flush. Don't you remember Dumb and Dumber? Don't use that toilet. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to tell you this. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. Yancy Porter will be with us momentarily. But want to say we are at Biddy and Beau Coffee, downtown Auburn, right next to Auburn Bank on Gay Street. This is a cool place. I'm waiting for Mildred to go over there and get me a cup of coffee. I'm fasting. I'm gonna have to start being like Gandhi. I am fasting. I'm really getting hungry, and I'm just I can smell the food cooking in the back, but I just can't imagine what it's like for the Florida people. But Tennessee tomorrow, if they don't go up and curb stomp Virginia, Auburn doesn't beat the hell out of UMass, people gravitate toward the worst possible scenario. Mm-hmm. Again, my resident psychologist, Mildred, the wife, Audrey, junk in your head, junk comes out. Mm-hmm. Take a quick break from a couple of our sponsors. We'll be right back from Biddy and Beau Coffee in downtown, as they say up north, Auburn, Alabama.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Beau Carter back here with us right now. We're going to have one of the employees, Cody, works up here at Biddy and Beau Coffee, get on here with you. We're going to talk some football here for a couple of minutes. I know he's got to get back to work. Pull a chair on up here, Cody.
Okay.
But, Cody, you are – move in a little bit closer so we can see you on camera.
Yes, sir.
No, actually, move over. Yeah, there we go. Back over. There
Okay.
Okay, there we go. All right, so tell us about Biddy and Beau Coffee. This is a great place. My friend – fraternity brother Guy May bought this place, absolutely loves it. And tell people, if they've never been to Biddy and Beau Coffee, why this is the only place in the world, free world or not, to buy a coffee and come have a great time.
Essentially it's just about, having fun, being able to, meet people with special needs. And, we're just, respected at a high level. And, we just love, our customers coming in and respecting, us and, being able to have a fun time, getting to meet people that, have exceptional disabilities. And, it's just an amazing atmosphere to be able to meet people that you don't see on an everyday life, coaches, baseball, football, softball, equestrian, they all come in to have a fun time and get a cup of coffee. And, we make it for them. And it's not only disability, it's building friendships and, being able to have that special bond with people that we don't see in an everyday life.
I'm going to tell you what, Beau, I go to a lot of places in today's world since the virus hit. The service industry is on a respirator. But when you come in here, these people are up here early. Their attitude is incredible. And I talked to Butch Thompson a lot and Greg Williams, my friend, the equestrian coach. They love coming here. Who were some of the coaches you met? And by the way, Guy told me a pretty cool story when they hired a bunch of the new employees. They call it, what do they call that? They had some of the Auburn coaches, Cadillac Williams and Trevon Reed showed up. Talk about that story. I love that.
Yes, sir. Basically it was just a fun time, being able to meet the coaches and, being able to give back to our community as they once gave back to us. And, having them here, is just a special, opportunity to be able to meet the football coaches and be able to give back, to those people that give back to us. It's a special time, to be able to meet people that are just especially special to us. And, it's getting ready to be a great football season, and our boys getting ready to turn it up this year.
One thing, you're an Auburn fan. You pull for them no matter what. You're the kind of guy that I think pulls for them more when they're struggling. That's what matters, isn't it? You know some of the players.
Yes, sir. I know number 9, Bretton Williams. He went to school with me, for a couple of years. And, what an exceptional guy. On the ground, he was just amazing, being able to be coached by Opelika Bulldogs. And, we just got back from a road trip to Montgomery. We won 36-16. And we look forward to the next season, playing the next game this week. This next Friday night, we're playing a strong Robert E. Lee team out of Montgomery known as Percy Julian now. We did play in the rain and last year, and we won in overtime. Thanks to a fumble, we brought it back to the house for 6.
I love it. Hey, Beau, I know you got a question or two for Cody, and Cody won't keep on. I know you got a bunch of people coming here to work, but I wish everybody had an attitude like Cody. I don't look at him differently than I do anybody else. In fact, I got more respect for him, though, than most people I see when I go out in public today. Why can't the rest of America learn from this guy?
That's a great question, Cody. Thank you for the great work you do. There's an ice cream parlor right here in Dallas that's got 4 or 5 locations, and they have a bunch of special needs guys. It's just such a wonderful atmosphere and such a great place for the kids to work. And they're people are so appreciative of their attitude and what everybody it's just a great place to live and, to visit and breathe and have a good ice cream or a good coffee there.
Yeah. And I think what we're getting down to is it's fun to go to a place where the employees actually want to be there. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of football questions real quick, and I'll let you go.
Yes.
Who do you think's going to win the SEC this year? Who's your top 4 teams to make the college football playoff? The last time we have only 4 before we go to 12, Cody.
Yeah, I think Alabama or Georgia, could possibly repeat. But, being that they're a sleeper, on most of these teams, like they said, anybody can, sleep on them and, say that Auburn could possibly, surprise us. Like I said, it's going to be a, great year. And, hopefully, we will see Alabama, we will see Georgia. But it just depends on how well Auburn plays this year. They could be a sleeper, and everybody predicts them to maybe be a sleeper on them and surprise the College Football World Series. And hopefully we can get in there somehow, if we have a great year. And I'm looking forward to Alabama, Georgia. But if that doesn't happen, Auburn could get in, LSU could get in, Texas A&M could possibly get in, but there's a lot of unknowns out there.
Give me your 4 playoff teams that'll play for the fight for the national championship.
Well, that's a good question. I actually think that Alabama could repeat. Like I said, Georgia could easily repeat. And we could possibly have LSU sneak in, because they're a great team as well. And I also got Tennessee. Tennessee could very well surprise, because they've had a great year. They've turned it up the last few years, and I think that there's going to be a surprise waiting on the other side. And I think maybe, like I said, my top 4, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and possibly even Texas A&M.
Cody, one more thing. Got a lot of people listening and watching all over the place. Some people, it might be raining today. Oh, it's crap. I'm not going to do it. I'm having a bad day. Life sucks. What's a message you give to people? Because I think you're the kind of person that wakes up and says, God's given me another day. Get out of my way.
Yeah, the message I can tell y'all is, believe in yourself, believe in your person, because there's a lot of negativity out there that people are saying that, life ain't all rainbows and unicorns. But I tell you what, it's not all about believing in yourself. It's about believing in the person that you are, because the people out there can say, well, you could turn a bad situation into a positive, because a lot of people don't look at you as a good person all the time. They also look at you as a negative person, because that's who they are. But my main goal is I look at myself as I can be a good person. I can believe in myself, because, there's not a lot of good people out there in this world, because a lot of us are made fun of, picked on, bullied. And, I know that I was, picked on and bullied, through 4 years of high school. And I've learned to get over that. And I've made a positive about myself.
Beau, you want to be his press secretary when he runs for president?
We could, Cody. That's a great idea.
Hey, man.
We just
Cody,
appreciate great
look,
attitude.
Man, Biddy and Beau Coffee, downtown Auburn, on Gay Street, right next to Auburn Bank. You are the American dream, okay? You are, to me, a bigger deal than a guy that runs a 4.340, okay? You believe in yourself. You know what? Positive in, positive out, okay? I love it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Biddy and Beau Coffee, hearing a positive message. I love it, Cody. Thank you so much. Yancy Porter is in the green room getting ready to come out here, and we're going to talk some more college football on Friday. All right, that is some music. That's a great soundtrack from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think an old spaghetti western with that. Hey, you think of a bunch of pistoleros under serapes and sombreros and tequila and just cactus. Beau, man, hard to top hearing the message from Cody. Love that kid. Met him last year in here. Got a mind like the Library of Congress. Got everything chronicled in there, knows his sports, tough as nails. Got more respect for him than I do most people that don't have anything that they're having to fight with. But you know what? That's nothing to him. Love that attitude. All right, Yancy Porter will be on with us in just a second. It is raining cats and dogs here today at Biddy and Beau's. Let's get rolling. The college football race, the SEC. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I want to ask you about Mississippi State. Zach Arnett, you've been around a long time, Beau. He was there 3 years as defensive coordinator. I'm going to run through a bunch of teams with you. The fact that they won 9 games last year, he knows how to manage a defense in a fast-paced offense. But Mike Leach is gone, rest his soul. It's going to be, Zach Arnett, new offensive coordinator. Why does everybody think suddenly they're going to go from winning 9 games to falling off the face of the earth?
That's a great question. And again, Arnett really turned things around defensively. They had, they're scoring a lot of points, but they're giving up a lot of points. He kind of came in and leveled it out for them a little bit. And he wants to use the tight ends, which is a rarity. Mike Leach's defense said the offense had like 6 slot receivers or whatever, but I think they want to run the ball, play a little more ball control, and keep the pressure off the defense. That's one of the, and they've got Will Rogers, who's one of the great quarterbacks in the country back, so that they'll be able to throw the ball. But I know the big thing in the run and shoot offense is you score so quickly, the poor defense may be out on the field for like 32, 34 minutes during a ball game. So you don't want to wear your defense to the ground. I think that's what Arnett's going to try to do more with the balance of the attack, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say Mississippi State, Will Rogers. I think it's going to be a different offense this time around. New coach, so it's going to be different. I don't know if he'll be passing as much as he did last year, but who knows? Maybe they'll go with the same offense. But I think there will be a lot more running, a bit more of a kind of like balanced offense compared to where he's throwing it 40 times a game. But maybe we'll see what he does with the offense and go from there.
Well, the one thing I want to say too now, let's switch to Ole Miss. Jackson Dart, he'll be the starter. But Lane Kiffin, got to say, he's one of the best quarterback coaches in America. Last year, Beau, nobody can deny their schedule was back-end loaded. They're undefeated, and those last 5 games were brutal. Mm-hmm. Couple that with the fact that Auburn and Kiffin were talking, that was a distraction. Mm-hmm. Nobody can deny that. Put yourself in the shoes of Ole Miss's SID and the coaches. How do you handle that? Because when you got a guy like Lane Kiffin, every year people are going to come after him, and it doesn't help his team.
No, Rob, I love Coach Kiffin too. We were talking about how'd you like to be in the first meeting when Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin, and Nick Saban were in the same room. You bet. It would be a process to quote Coach Saban to get those 3 guys together. But it's funny, they all developed really close. Coach Saban and Leach were very good friends, as it turned out. But no, you're right. It's really tough distraction when your coach is being and Coach Kiffin's been around, of course, USC and the other positions he's had. So he's a high commodity. He knows how to coach quarterbacks, and they're he's like Mike Leach. Ole Miss is always going to have a great offense when he's there.
Yeah. All right, switching gears, let's head up to Fayetteville. The Fighting Sam Pittmans. We had Dudley Dawson, hoghill.net, on the show with us yesterday. KJ Jefferson is a big guy, 6'3", 245, out of North Panola County, Sardis, about 10 miles from the vault. But he went to Arkansas, and he came back. He could have left. This guy's cemented as a legacy in Razorback history. He has a big year this year. He could run for governor. But he's so big and so fast and athletic, it's to his detriment. Last year, the Mississippi State game, he wasn't ready to go. He wasn't ready to go against LSU. He wasn't ready to go in the Liberty game or at full strength. I'm bigger than most of these linebackers. I'm going to run over them. How does the coach get in that kid's head other than threaten him with, I'm taking you out?
Right. You got to teach him how to slide on those third and 5 plays or whatever, dude. Yeah. But my head. So Jefferson reminds me a whole lot of Cam Newton, honestly. Again, he's just as quick, can throw the ball about 70 or 80 yards, and just and I think he's going to have a kind of a breakout season for Arkansas this year. The injuries really figured in, but still, Sam Pittman got Arkansas to a bowl game. To me, Sam Pittman might have been the SEC Coach of the Year last year for all he did with. What they had to juggle lineups and a really good defense. And everybody at Arkansas loves Sam. A guy that paid his dues, became a head coach when he was 58 years old, and really, very. He's sort of a cult hero in Fayetteville.
I just remember watching that Liberty Bowl game last year. It was a high-scoring game. I remember came down to the wire. KJ Jefferson. I also remember him at Auburn. Now Auburn wasn't as great last year, but he was running over us. Had some good plays. He's just got to get the right mindset just for this season and for the future, just so that he knows his game plan, and the coach Sam Pittman will too. And I think if they get on the same deal, then they'll figure it out.
Still waiting for Arkansas coach Sam Pittman to be the national spokesman for Ham's Beer. I asked him about it at SEC Media Days, and Popeye's Fried Chicken. You in Arkansas, you can get a 30 rack of Ham's Beer at the Walmarts and win $15.98. And you're talking the highest quality beer in America, Ham's, the beer you've been looking for since 1865. But I'll digress. All right, Texas A&M. I am convinced that Bobby Petrino will be calling the plays this year, because I think Jimbo wants to keep that job. But even if they fire Jimbo without cause, just fire him. He's got 70 million reasons to sleep well at night. But I really think Bobby Petrino is one of the best offensive minds ever in college football. Am I crazy? Somewhere in the middle? What's going to happen?
No, look what he did at Louisville and Arkansas. I mean, just tremendous turnarounds, both programs. And if Jimbo leaves him alone, I think he'll be okay. We've got to keep someone said take the headset off Jimbo or make him sit behind the bench or whatever while Petrino's calling the plays. But A&M should be better. I saw that they're Connor Wegman's going to get the start for them in the first game tomorrow, and they've got some it's funny, Rob, and William, I think they've got 3 quarterbacks really and maybe a couple of walk-ons, or they're a little bit thin there the way quarterbacks go up and down these days. But they've got unbelievable talent. He's had 2 or 3 great recruiting seasons, and then they lost a lot of people from last year to this year, but they replaced a lot with several players with transfers. So thank the portal for these powerhouse teams staying powerhouse.
I mean, what can I say about Bobby Petrino? Great offensive mind. To be honest, before I saw the AP poll come out, I wasn't expecting Texas A&M to be number 23 team in the country just based off last season. But then now that I hear Bobby Petrino's there, I mean, they're just there. I can see why they have a lot of hype around them. Maybe he can change the quarterback room with who they've got and maybe get them a good season.
Beau, I have this vision when the A&M boosters get together, the old TV show Dallas, a room full at a big table full of J.R. Ewings, and everybody going, well, I got 25 oil wells. They're spewing money, and we're gonna. But look, Olin Buchanan, our good friend from White Oak, Texas, Texags.com, covers the Aggies for us, and you ask him. And, A&M, they want success, but one double-digit win season in this millennium for the Aggies. That was 11-2 in 2012. Johnny Football just, boom, came on the scene, sort of like, Kaja Gugu in the 80s, a one-hit wonder. 2013, he was pretty good. Didn't work out in the NFL. Connor Wigman is the quarterback. Think about this. What Bobby Petrino's done with every quarterback that he's ever coached. Why is suddenly Bobby – but hold on, let me just check. Check your text. I didn't get a text that said Bobby Petrino got a lobotomy on the way to College Station. The question is, if Jimbo doesn't let him call plays, I see more of the same from last year. That's why I think Bobby Petrino calls the plays.
I think so too. And people forget. I mean, A&M was like one pass at the end of the game from beating Alabama last year. So, and they beat him in College Station 2 years ago. So it's they've been this close, Rob, like you were saying, on the verge of back to another 10-11 win season. But they just I don't know. It's going from Florida. He won national championship in Florida State. Granted, if you beat Clemson and you beat North Carolina in the ACC, you pretty much have it whipped over there. The SEC, you've got 11, 10, 11, 12 now, future 16, 15 other teams you've got to beat with equal talent or monetary resources. So it's really a step up when going from the ACC to the SEC, and I think Petrino's realized this down through over the last couple of years.
Beau, I want to ask you real quick about Missouri, and would they have been a better fit to go back to the Big 12, go to the Big 10? They've got fans, the ones when I see them in the Liberty Bowl or at games, but how much does it matter? And that shadow, and you know what I'm talking about, of the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team is so big. Then on the other side of the state, the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. Is that just something they can't overcome, or they don't want to? I watched Bar Rescue the other night with Audrey. I was telling this guy if he wanted to make his bar better and more profitable, he says, you don't have the discipline to do the things that you don't want to do. Is that the case with Missouri football?
It's been interesting. Eli Drinkwitz has done a good job at his previous spots or whatever too, and so they won last night. That was a good win over FCS team. But and then plus you've got Kansas and Kansas State. Kansas is on the rise, as you guys saw them in the Liberty Bowl, and Kansas State won the Big 12 championship last year. They recruited a lot of the same kids in the Kansas City area. And Rob, you hit the nail on the head. It's Columbia is almost equidistant from St. Louis and Kansas City, so it's a really they're kind of out there in no man's, sort of like Vanderbilt, being in the middle between Tennessee and the SEC schools that really hit Nashville recruiting, that Middle Tennessee recruiting very hard. So it's it's a tough place to win. Seems getting tougher.
Yeah, Missouri. I mean, I think just last year I remember them winning a few games. They got close to Georgia. That was a good game for them, even though they lost. Honestly, wish I could have seen them beat Georgia. That would have made me really happy. But Brady Cook, I think he's stepping up this year. I think they're going to have a better season. Something I'll say about just their field and just their stadium. It's kind of, just to me, it's a bit whack. Just with just behind the field, you see whenever they kick.
Wait a minute, we got a millennial term here. A bit whack. Wait a minute, come back on that one. Translate.
You got the grass right behind the field goal post, and it just doesn't look great. And it's just that's my personal opinion. Maybe people have different opinions, but anyways, I think they'll have a better year this year. When maybe one or two more games than they did last year, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and Beau, I think about Missouri when Eli Drinkwitz is one of the most likable coaches around, but I just think you've got to have fans like you have down here in the Deep South that are ready to put their head through a wall and smash stuff, and they get mad when they lose, but they don't like losing, so they'll do something about it. I don't know. They've got that NIL deal that the governor signed. If you're an in-state kid and you sign with Missouri in December, you can start receiving NIL. So interesting thing. All right, Beau, we have a few minutes left. Yancy Porter was climbing up the telephone pole in the back, and he fell down. They're having I think they got bad styrms, as my grandmother called it, a styrm, not a storm, but a styrm. Over in Oxford or something, but he cannot get through. We'll get him back on tomorrow or Monday. Expansion, we know about it, but now the great thing is we're playing the football games. All right? Got any ideas for great stories that William Halliday, a sophomore, 6'1", 187 pounds from Memphis, MUS, what's some great stories you think he could be writing on other than who are the people that are going to replace Suni Lee? That was a great thing Ken said.
You can't bring her up anymore. She's gone. I can't hear her.
Yeah, that's right. Dadgummit. She headed back to the West Coast there. Oh, yeah,
she's gone back to the West Coast. Okay.
That's right. She's getting ready for this. She better watch out because Simone Biles is just won her 8th national championship. So Simone's going to be good competition. She's over the twisties or whatever they call it. The thing. But no, I think one of the couple of big stories at Auburn. Well, the equestrian team, national champions. Rob, we got to get you out there on that. And Hugh Freeze is an amazing story. They sort of went to Liberty, got new life over there at Auburn. He knows the SEC. He's from Oxford. He grew up in Oxford, so he's a friend of the Mannings. And I mean, that's it's going to be very interesting, especially that Cal game. I think that's going to tell a lot about Auburn's. And I would not be surprised to see Auburn, go out there and win that ball game. They've got a chance to do some damage early.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I just wrote an article on some former Auburn players that are in the NFL and how they did in the preseason. That article should be coming out on Auburn Plays soon enough. But I think a lot of good players out there in Auburn. Apparently, there are 34 players I saw last night, 34 players that are still in the NFL that went to Auburn on 21 different teams, according to outlets.
That means I got about 21 different T-shirts, Beau.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, look, man, we're gonna wrap it up. Great show, it always is. And man, get Yancy to Ken's Laundromat to join. I love it. Hey, great show though, as always. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, and we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. You heard from our friend Cody here. And you know what? Let that be contagious in the service industry all over America. You know what about attitude? I don't need your attitude. I've got my own. Get a positive attitude. Bring it every day. Wake up every morning and say, it's going to be a great day. If it's raining, put on your rain gear. Okay? Go attack life. But we will be back with you tomorrow morning. It is football weekend. There'll be games on again tonight. Hey, your team loses the first weekend. It ain't the end of the world. It ain't what happens to you. It's how you respond to it. Okay? So, great one. Thanks to all of our listeners, all of our sponsors. Have a great one. We are out of here.